Boji complained about my trash cans, but the inspector found their dumpster overflowing. Mrs. Holloway stood on my front lawn, her face twisted in fury, a crumpled violation notice clenched in her fist. Behind her, 2 HOA board members, Mr. Dawson and some smug-looking guy I'd never even seen before, stood with arms crossed like she was leading some kind of military tribunal. I crossed my arms, matching her stance. "What's the problem this time?" She jabbed a manicured finger at my driveway. "That," she spat. "Your fucking trash cans. Out. Again." I blinked, then laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the sheer absurdity of it was starting to crack me. You're standing in my yard at, 8 in the morning, to yell about trash cans? Holloway's eyes narrowed, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "It's not just trash cans, Mr. Carter. It's the rules. And if you can't follow them, you don't belong here." I felt my pulse spike. That was the real issue, wasn't it? Not the trash, not the rules. It was me, the new guy, the outsider, who didn't fit their perfect little HOA. I took a slow step forward, letting the tension build. "You mean your rules? The ones you enforce when it suits you?" "Because I just walked by Dawson's house, and guess what?" I pointed toward the smug board member. "His trash cans are still out. No bright red violation notice on his door." Dawson shifted uncomfortably. Holloway didn't flinch. "Don't test me, Carter. We run this neighborhood, and if you think for 1 second—" I cut her off. "You don't run shit, Holloway. You're just a control freak with too much time on your hands." Her face turned an ugly shade of red. "That's it." She turned to Dawson. "Write him up, again, and find him this time." I let out a low whistle. "Wow. You don't even pretend anymore, huh? Try me." She shoved the violation notice against my chest. "Enjoy your fine asshole." I grabbed the paper, crumpled it in my fist, and tossed it at her feet. "Yeah, enjoy this." And with that, I turned my back and walked into my house, slamming the door behind me. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I stood in my kitchen, gripping the counter, willing my temper to settle. Outside, the neighborhood looked picture perfect. Neatly trimmed hedges and houses all painted in the same boring shades of beige. On the surface, it was suburban bliss, but underneath, it was a dictatorship run by a woman who loved playing God. I lived here for 6 months. 6 months of petty infractions. First, it was the trash cans. Then, the non-regulation flower pots on my porch. Then, a noise complaint because I dared to use my grill past 9 p.m., but I'd noticed something. The rules only seemed to apply to certain people. My next-door neighbor, an older woman who'd lived here for over a decade, once admitted in hushed tones, "Holloway picks her targets. She likes making people bend." Not me. I had something they didn't know about, a quiet growing folder of photos, timestamps, and recorded conversations. Every selective fine. Every ignored violation, when it was one of their favorites breaking the rules. And tonight, I'd get the final piece of the puzzle because I knew something they didn't. That dumpster behind the HOA clubhouse, it was a goddamn disaster zone. That night, I parked my car down the street and walked toward the clubhouse. My phone was in my pocket, camera ready. The HOA building was dark except for a single security light casting an eerie glow over the back lot. And there it was, exactly as I'd heard. A mountain of trash bags spilling from the dumpster piled against the back wall. Some had split open, the stench of rotting food and who knew what else hanging in the humid night air. I snapped a few pictures, then switched to video. "So," I muttered under my breath, They want to fine me over one trash can, but this is fine? A sharp voice cut through the darkness. What the fuck do you think you're doing? I turned. Mrs. Holloway stood a few feet away, hands on her hips. Behind her, Dawson, cocked red-handed. A slow grin spread across my face. Oh, you're gonna love this. Mrs. Holloway's heels clicked against the pavement as she marched toward me, her face tight with fury. Dawson trailed behind, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. What the fuck are you doing skulking around back here, Carter? Holloway snapped, stopping just short of my face. Trespassing? Vandalizing? I smirked and held up my phone. Nah, just documenting HOA property. Gotta make sure the neighborhood's up to your standards, right? Her eyes flicked to the dumpster, then back to me. Put the phone away. I hit the record button and grinned. Nah. Dawson cleared his throat. Look, man, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're making this a lot worse for yourself. I laughed, shaking my head. Worse? You two have been fining me for months over bullshit. Meanwhile, this... I waved toward the festering pile of garbage. This is somehow not a problem? Holloway's jaw clenched. This isn't your concern. It is now, I shot back. You want to fine people for their trash cans? You better start fining yourselves first. Holloway stepped closer, her voice a low, venomous whisper. You don't know who you're fucking with, Carter. I met her glare, my grin widening. Oh, I think I do. The real question is, do you know who you're fucking with? She stared at me for a long moment, then spun on her heel. Fine. Do you want to play dirty? Let's play. She shot a glance at Dawson. File another violation. Dawson hesitated. For, I don't care. Make something up. She turned back to me, smiling sweetly. Enjoy your new fine, asshole. Then, with one last glance at the dumpster, she stormed off into the night. Dawson lingered. Dude, just stop. I took a step closer. You scared, Dawson? His mouth opened, then closed. He turned and hurried after Holloway. I exhaled slowly. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about me anymore. The next morning, another bright red notice was plastered on my door. Violation, unauthorized photography of HOA property. A fucking joke. I ripped it off, laughing bitterly. My phone buzzed. My neighbor, Lisa. Hey, did you get fined again? She asked, voice hushed. Oh yeah, I said, rubbing my temple. Taking pictures is now a crime. Lisa sighed. She's targeting you hard, and people are noticing. I heard some of the other board members talking. Holloway's getting paranoid. Good, I muttered. Lisa hesitated. Be careful. I heard she's planning something big. I thanked her and hung up. Big? Eh? I'd be ready. By the end of the week, it was clear Holloway had cranked the harassment to 11. And through it all, I waited because I knew something she didn't. I had submitted a formal complaint to the city. An inspector was coming, and when they arrived, I'd make damn sure the entire neighborhood was watching. The night before the inspection, I took another walk to the clubhouse. This time, I wasn't alone. Lisa and two other neighbors, Mark and Evelyn, had agreed to meet me there. When they saw the dumpster, Evelyn whistled. Jesus! And they're harassing you over a single trash can? Lisa shook her head. They knew about this. They just thought no one would call them out. Mark crossed his arms. So? What's the plan? I exhaled. Tomorrow morning, the city inspector comes. Holloway won't see it coming. Lisa grinned. Oh, this is gonna be good. But as we turned to leave, my stomach dropped. A sleek black car sat at the curb, watching. The moment our eyes met, it peeled away. Lisa's face paled. Shit, they know. I swallowed hard. Let them watch. By tomorrow, they'd be the ones with something to fear. Mrs. Holloway stormed toward me, her heels grinding into the pavement like she was trying to crush the asphalt beneath her feet. Her face was flushed red, her breathing sharp, and for the first time, I saw something behind her fury. "You think you're smart, don't you?" she hissed, stopping just inches from my face. "Calling in the city? You have no idea what you've just done." I sipped my coffee, letting her words hang in the air. "Seems to me," I said slowly, "that you're the one shitting bricks, Holloway." Her hands curled into fists. "You've gone too far, Carter. You're harassing this HOA. You've been spying." "Trespassing? Spying?" I let out a laugh. "Lady, I live here. This is my neighborhood, too. And it turns out when you find someone for a trash can while your own dumpster looks like a landfill, people tend to notice." Her nostrils flared. "You're done. We've already filed a formal complaint against you." I cocked my head. "For what?" "Looking at public property, taking a walk." "For disrupting the peace," she snapped. "Creating division in the community. Harassing board members." A low chuckle rumbled in my chest. "You mean calling out your bullshit?" Her voice dropped to a threatening whisper. "You don't win against the HOA, Carter." I took a slow step forward, lowering my voice to match hers. "You already lost, Holloway. You just don't know it yet." At that moment, a city inspector's van pulled up to the curb. A short, gruff-looking man with a clipboard stepped out, scanning the area. Holloway's jaw tightened. I gave her a slow grin. "Showtime." As the inspector approached, neighbors gathered, some peeking through their blinds, others stepping onto their porches. Lisa, Mark, and Evelyn stood near my driveway, arms crossed, watching everything unfold. "Morning," the inspector said, flipping through his notes. "Got a report of an ongoing sanitation issue with HOA property?" I gestured toward the clubhouse dumpster. "Right over there." Holloway stepped in front of him, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Oh, this is just a misunderstanding. You know how these things go. Someone makes a complaint, and before you know it, rumors spread." The inspector didn't even blink. "Let's take a look." I followed closely as we rounded the corner. The moment the dumpster came into view, I heard a sharp intake of breath from the inspector. Bags piled everywhere, flies buzzing. The smell hit like a freight train. The inspector scribbled something on his clipboard. This is bad." He turned to Holloway. "How long has this been like this?" She plastered on a thin smile. We have a service. They must have skipped it for months," I cut in. A few neighbors chuckled. Others murmured. Dawson, standing off to the side, looked like he wanted to melt into the pavement. The inspector sighed. "Yeah, this is a violation. Severe." He snapped a few photos, then turned to Holloway. "You'll be receiving an official citation. If this isn't cleaned and properly managed within a week, further fines will be issued." Holloway's face twitched, and then I saw it. The moment it clicked for the rest of the neighborhood, Lisa smirked. "So, that's where our HOA dues have been going." "Yeah," Mark added. "She's been fining us for bullshit while ignoring actual problems." Murmurs spread. People turned to one another, whispering. The shift was happening. Holloway knew it, too. Her fingers twitched at her sides. This wasn't just about the dumpster anymore. This was about her power slipping through her fingers. By that evening, the neighborhood was in chaos. Social media blew up. Posts in the HOA Facebook group questioned the board's integrity. Someone had uploaded a video of the inspection. I scrolled through the comments, smirking. Wait, they fined me for a patio umbrella, but let this slide? I got charged $100 for grass height violations. While they let this dumpster fester, Holloway needs to go. This is corruption. Then I saw something golden. A petition. Vote of no confidence in HOA President Brenda Holloway. Signatures were climbing by the minute. A knock on my door made me look up. Lisa stood there, practically vibrating with excitement. "Did you see this? Holloway is losing it. She's in full damage control mode." I stepped outside, and sure enough, Holloway was making her rounds, talking to homeowners. Desperate, she spotted me, her face twisted in pure rage. She marched straight toward me, stopping just short of my porch. "You did this," she snarled. I shrugged. "Nah, you did." Her voice shook. "You have no idea the kind of shitstorm you've started." "Yeah?" I leaned forward. "And what are you gonna do about it?" Her lips curled. "You'll see." And for the first time I saw something in her eyes. She turned and stalked away, shoulders tense. Lisa nudged me. "You think she's got something left up her sleeve?" I exhaled. I hope she does, because I was ready for the final round. I leaned against the back wall, arms crossed, watching as Mrs. Holloway sat at the front, flanked by Dawson and the rest of her crumbling regime. Her nails tapped the wooden table in a slow, deliberate rhythm, the only sign she was barely holding it together. I leaned against the back wall, arms crossed, watching as Mrs. Holloway sat at the front, flanked by Dawson and the rest of her crumbling regime. Her nails tapped the wooden table in a slow, deliberate rhythm, the only sign she was barely holding it together. The tension in the air was thick. Neighbors whispered among themselves, some shooting me glances, others openly glaring at the board. The petition had gained traction fast, too fast for Holloway to stop. Lisa nudged me. "She's about to snap." I smirked. "Let's make sure she does." Holloway cleared her throat and forced a smile that looked about as natural as a wax figure. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. There's been some unfortunate misinformation circulating about the HOA's handling of community affairs, and I wanted to address it personally." A scoff rippled through the crowd. "Misinformation?" Mark called out from the side. "We all saw the video of the inspector handing you a fine, Brenda." Her nostrils flared. "First of all, it's Mrs. Holloway." I chuckled, shaking my head. "Not for much longer." She snapped toward me, eyes blazing. "This is exactly what I mean. One resident who has consistently broken the rules has been poisoning this community against its own leadership." I stepped forward, slow and deliberate. "You mean holding you accountable?" Her voice wavered. "You don't—" I cut her off. "Let's cut the bullshit, Holloway. You didn't call this meeting to address misinformation. You called it because you're losing, and you know it." The murmurs grew louder. Someone muttered, "Yeah, why the emergency meeting now?" Another voice piped up. "Why weren't we told about the violations against the HOA before Carter exposed them?" Holloway slammed her palm against the table. "Enough!" The room fell silent. She took a shaky breath, adjusting the collar of her blazer. "I am still the president of this HOA, and under my leadership, we have upheld the standards that make this community what it is. Without rules, without order, this neighborhood would fall into chaos." I smiled. "You mean without your power?" Her eyes twitched. I turned to the crowd. "She says it's about rules. But here's the truth. These rules, they don't apply to everyone. Only to the people she doesn't like." I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. "Since Mrs. Holloway likes documentation so much, let's look at the facts." I mirrored my phone screen onto the clubhouse projector. The first image popped up, a screenshot of every violation I'd received, the dates, the petty infractions. "Now let's compare that," I continued, flipping to the next slide, "with violations given to her friends." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Lisa grinned. "Ooh, this is getting good." I kept going. "Here's footage of the overflowing HOA dumpster before the inspection." The video played. Bags of rotting trash, maggots writhing. Someone gagged audibly. And here's what the official report says. I flipped to the next slide, displaying the inspector's notes. Multiple violations, repeated neglect, direct negligence from the HOA board. Holloway's face turned the color of curdled milk. Dawson shifted in his seat, eyes darting around like he was looking for the nearest exit. Oh, but wait, I said, swiping again. Let's talk about money. I pulled up the HOA's spending records. This is a breakdown of how much we've paid in HOA dues over the last year, I continued. And here, I zoomed in on a suspicious section, is where that money should have gone to maintain that dumpster. Silence. Then Lisa said, loud and clear, so where the fuck did the money go, Brenda? All eyes snapped to Holloway. Her mouth opened, then closed. No answer. Mark stood. I second the motion to immediately remove Brenda Holloway as HOA president. You can't do this, Holloway shrieked, slamming her fists on the table as people began signing their names to the petition. Lisa smirked. Pretty sure we can. Neighbors pushed forward, eager to sign, to finish her. Dawson had already slunk toward the door like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. The HOA treasurer, a woman who had stayed silent through most of the meeting, stood slowly, adjusting her glasses. I'd like to formally request an audit of all HOA funds for the last 5 years. Another uproar. I leaned down to Holloway's level, lowering my voice so only she could hear. You had a good run, I murmured. But you fucked with the wrong guy. Her eyes burned into mine. Pure hatred. But beneath it, fear. Because this wasn't just about losing her title. This was about the fact that when people started digging into HOA funds, they were going to find things that couldn't be explained away. She shot up from her seat, jabbing a finger toward the crowd. You think you can run this place without me? You'll regret this. You'll all regret this. No one even looked at her. She was done. The vote was cast. Brenda Holloway, removed as HOA president. Effective immediately. Her face twisted in rage, but she couldn't fight it. Not anymore. With a final huff, she grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. This isn't over, Lisa chuckled. Nah. It really is. Holloway stomped out. The second the door slammed shut behind her, the room exploded into cheers. I exhaled, the tension in my chest finally loosening. It was over. Lisa clapped me on the back. Well, she said, grinning, that was fun as fuck. I smirked. Told you she'd break. Mark laughed. What do we do now? I glanced around at the room full of newly empowered residents, the energy buzzing, a new chapter beginning. I grinned. We clean house. The next morning, the HOA's Facebook page was a war zone. Posts flooded in, some celebrating, some demanding answers, some just laughing at how Brenda Holloway had imploded in real time. Someone had even uploaded a slow-mo version of her storming out, complete with dramatic music. Lisa sent me a link. Congressman Tyrant Holloway gets wrecked, must watch. I laughed into my coffee. We should send this to her. Lisa snorted. She'd stroke out, but the real fallout was just starting. By noon, Brenda had officially resigned from the HOA board entirely. Dawson, sensing his doom, bailed with her. Another board member, the smug guy who never spoke, announced he was relocating next month. They were getting the fuck out before people started digging too deep. And the digging? Oh, it was already happening. The audit committee had been formed within hours of Brenda's removal, and what they found was nasty. Brenda had been skimming HOA money for years. Lisa sent me another screenshot. Rumor is someone's reporting this shit to the state fraud office. I leaned back in my chair, smiling. Good. I stepped outside later that afternoon, expecting to find my usual HOA violation taped to my door. Nothing. For the first time in 6 months, my mailbox wasn't stuffed with threats, no bullshit fines, no harassment, just silent. A strange, unfamiliar feeling settled in my chest. Peace. Lisa jogged over, grinning like she hadn't just burned an entire regime to the ground. Guess what? The fines? She waggled her phone. Old voided. I raised an eyebrow. Even the unauthorized photography one? Oh, yeah, she smirked. Turns out, you can't fine someone for exposing your bullshit. I exhaled, shaking my head. Finally, not just that. She folded her arms. A bunch of people want to change the HOA rules. Less bullshit. Less we control your whole life vibes. I grinned. Now that I'd vote for. She nudged me. So? Was it worth it? I looked around. The neighborhood felt different now. Lighter. Like everyone was waking up from some kind of collective gaslighting. Was it worth it? 2 weeks later, I walked by the clubhouse, hands in my pockets, and stopped, dead in my tracks. The infamous dumpster, was gone. In its place, a brand new, properly enclosed waste area. Clean, maintained, no maggots, no stench. No evidence of Brenda Holloway's hypocrisy. Mark walked by and clapped me on the back. Man, you did burn it all down, huh? I chuckled. Just took out the trash, he laughed. You sticking around? I thought about it. About how this neighborhood had tried to squeeze me out. How Holloway had dared me to push back, and how I'd won. I smirked. Yeah, I think I will. Mark grinned. Good. We need more people like you. I watched as a new group of HOA board members, actual reasonable people, met by the clubhouse, discussing real community improvements. This place wasn't perfect, but now it wasn't hers anymore, and that was enough. For now,